Want to make sure my face is on the re-edited version from now on. That's my only stipulation.
That intro gets me every time. It's brilliant. Welcome, everyone. We are back for another fully loaded transfer show. Lots and lots to talk about. Lots and lots to talk about within the fan base regarding transfers as well. And we're going to get into all of that tonight. But welcome, everyone, in the chat. If you haven't already, get your questions in because your questions will be put forward to our very special guest this evening. But first and foremost, Martin, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. I suppose quick update. Still no shirt arrived from Castore. And I must give a shout out. Paul Oxley, I know he's in the chat. He put a tweet out there about 5 minutes or so ago of some real bad examples. So he was over in the Metro Centre today. And happened to have a look at some of the home jerseys. He sent me some pictures of some of the shirts, and they are diabolical. But I'll at some point I didn't get a chance to put them up on the show, so he'll probably be shouting at me now. But I will throw them up and forward on his tweet later on. You can have a look at them, and they do include not just us. It also includes an Aston Villa shirt with the Castore badge upside down, and a Wolves one with the Castore at the top, also upside down and in the wrong colour. So pretty good going from them. But yeah, I can see Oxfordshire Mag Mike there says his THGate shirt arrived today quicker than most of Castore's. You're not wrong, mate. But yeah, other than that, I'm all good, mate. About a week to go, then I've got a few holidays. I know you're heading off very, very soon.
Yes.
So it'll God knows what's going to happen to the show. I think that it's kind of down to me and Chris in control, which is worrying. Somewhat, but hopefully we'll be fine. We'll make it work while you go and relax, mate. But yeah, all good.
Good stuff, mate. Yeah, we always make it work. You know,
we do, pal. That's it.
But yeah, it's an interesting time for Newcastle United. Interesting time, and I think we said this a few weeks ago that mid transfer window there's going to be a little bit of a lull, and fans may get frustrated, and I think that's the case. But look, not all is lost, and there are definitely work being done right now with Newcastle United. And look, as we do every single week, we get people on the show that know their stuff about transfers and the activity, and we are absolutely delighted to have Graeme Bailey from 90minute.com to join us. So let's bring him in. How you doing, Graeme?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all.
Great. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely. So look, we'll get down to it. We'll get down to transfers, and there's already a number of questions coming in on social media and in the live chat as well, which we'll get to at some point. But first and foremost, just for those that might not know too much about you, just give us a little bit of background of who you are and what you do, really.
I'm a northeast lad from Teesside, as you can probably tell. Been writing for over 20 years. Started at Planet Football back in the day, bought up by Sky, spent 20 years there as news editor. Went off to work for a few Sunday papers and did a bit of marketing. And about 18 months ago, I started linking up with 90min.com, who started moving into the news business full-time from about 12 months ago. And yeah, we've been hammering away. I'm transfer correspondent for them now, and we've been getting into it there. And obviously Newcastle, one of my main clubs, being northeast based, along with Leeds. I've got a few good contacts which have built up over the years. And but I cover all the major clubs, and obviously Newcastle very much one of those. I do have an in-running bet on one of my Talking Transfers podcasts, which we run. I do fancy Newcastle to be the highest ranking United in the Premier League this season. That is subject to them getting a few more deals done. But I am telling the Manchester and West Ham fans that they need to start saying Man United and West Ham United. But also I'm hoping Eddie and the people upstairs don't let me down, because they're nearly there.
Nearly there. And I tell you what, you'd have got a number of thumbs up off that comment, Graeme. That's for sure in the chat, because we always say, we are the original United, and when others get referred to as United, I think it does rile up the Newcastle fan base somewhat. But great to hear that, and great to hear your background as well. And I know you've been, obviously reporting on Newcastle for quite a while. Anyway, and I've followed a lot of the work that you've done. So with that in mind, and talking about that and talking about transfers, look, at this moment in time, we've made 3 transfers. I think there are some in the fan base that forget that we've actually made 3 transfers already. In that, Nick Pope is through the door, Matty Targett was through the door, and obviously the big money signing in Sven Botman, that big centre back that will look to revamp our defensive unit. How would you assess Newcastle's transfer window so far with 6 weeks to go?
Yeah, I think it started very well. Matt Targett was a good, sensible deal. You could have gone overspent on an untried, possibly more heralded player, but I think I like Matt Targett a lot. I think he was outstanding last season. Every deal that Eddie did and those above him did in January worked out. I thought I loved the business he did. Nick Pope, I think you did need that goalkeeper, and I think Nick Pope is an outstanding one. I like Sven Botman. I think he's got a little bit to prove, but I think he's well suited to England. I've seen a little bit of him, and yeah, I like him. Be interested to see who he's partnered with. See a lot of people suggesting Fabian Schär. For me, I obviously cover a lot of Newcastle games as well, and I don't see how you can not pick Dan Burn. To be honest, I didn't think he put a foot wrong from when he came in, and I think Burn and Botman would be quite a frightening, formidable partnership. To be honest, I think Fabian Schär's got a rick in him. I'll be honest, I do. I don't think he frightens anyone. Jamal Lascelles, I think he lost a bit of confidence, if anything. I think on his day, he's as good as anyone there. But I think I'd be surprised if it wasn't Burn and Botman starting the season. I haven't seen much of the pre-season, I must admit. And then we go on to the rest of it. Yeah, obviously I did a piece today. The attack is still a priority. They want a right winger. I think that's the main priority. They want a striker as well. I think primarily down to Callum Wilson's injury record. I don't think any of us really believe. I think if you get 75% out of him of the Premier League, I think you'll be doing well. And that's not being nasty to the lad. That's just how it is with his career, isn't it? He's been very unfortunate because he is an England national. He's an outstanding player. And I think if you do bring a striker in, it won't necessarily be someone better than him, but you want someone as good. And Chris Wood came in, did his job, but he's no Callum Wilson, as I think we'd all agree to. And then I still think the centre midfield next to Bruno is an area that I think they would like to do, if it's possible. Carney at Aston Villa, I'm going to call him. Can't pronounce his second name. He's come up on the market. He's an outstanding player. And he's one who... There are players out there who, if they come on the market, Newcastle will be in the mix for. Chukwuemeka there. I'll say it once.
Yeah.
And obviously I was managed to reveal Arsenal and Newcastle had joined that hunt for him a few weeks ago. And he's a wonderful talent. He really is. He's outstanding. And I think he's one of the ones who PFI, outside the budget, they would do that deal. So yeah, they have got a budget they're working on. So, and that's partly the reason we're seeing this right wing and attacker stagnate a little bit. But I think if someone like him comes on the market and you can get him for like less than 30 million, because he's potentially as good as Jude Bellingham. He's not there now, but potentially he's a potential world star, this lad. Yeah. So if you can get him now, you do that deal. So I think he's in more in that bracket. And I would like to see another midfield next to Bruno. Because for me, I've said this a number of shows, guys, I think Bruno has the potential to be the best midfielder in the Premier League in his position. I love him. I think he's amazing. He's the best Brazilian we've seen in the Premier League since my hero Emerson. There's a nice signed picture of Emerson there, the best midfielder, best Brazilian the Premier League's ever seen.
For now,
and so if he can eclipse Emerson, then you know he's doing well. But I love Bruno, and I think Newcastle need to build around him, which I think they are. You know, but I think he could be. I honestly think he will be in the PFA Team of the Year next year, 100%. He's that good, and that's where I worry, guys, a little bit about this. The right winger and attacker. I think they're not willing to pay some of the fees. For me, personally, and we'll come on to Moussa Diaby, is the player on everyone's lips. They love Moussa Diaby. They really do. Obviously, I revealed a few weeks ago they've had talks to try to get him. You know, the player has said he wants to stay, his intent to stay, but he would be prepared to come to Tyneside. I know, I've been told from the people involved, he would come to Tyneside. And to be fair, that's why they were pursuing him, guys. You know, right. It's the whole point of, you know, they're not, it's one of these things. You won't be pursuing a player solely because behind the scenes, Moussa Diaby would be willing. And for me, I'd take that risk and not a striker. I'd put all the money I've got left in this budget to get Moussa Diaby. If I was Newcastle, that's the way I'd go. You've got Saint-Maximin. Yeah, I must admit, I'm not Saint-Maximin's biggest fan. I think he flatters to deceive massively. These links with Tottenham, they're a little bit outlandish. Anyone who looks at Saint-Maximin's stats is just, you know, guys. Since he's been in the Premier League, I don't know whether you are Allan lovers, by the way. I presume you are. But
no, I think I'm 2 for 1 here, because I think you and Mark are probably on the same page, and I'm slightly the other way with regards.
Since he arrived in the Premier League, how many against the current top 4? How many goals and assists has he got? Do you think? Do you know?
The current top 4?
Yeah. How many do you think?
I'd say 0.
Oh yeah, I don't think he's got too many. If I think off the top of my head, maybe 1.
It didn't really matter. He's got 1 assist against Chelsea in that time, and I think that just tells you everything. I think, and I watched him. You know, I always go there thinking, you know, obviously he was the one gleaming light in that Steve Bruce era, wasn't he? I think, which is why the fans love him, and he is exciting. But I watched him. It was a home game against Liverpool I was covering, and I think he went over on his shoulder in the first minute, and he spent the next 15 minutes just moaning about it and not involved. But anyway, I think he's part of the current team. I think long term he hasn't got a future. I don't see him involved long term anyway. But you need that real top 6 quality on that side, like a Moussa Diaby. And we'll talk about some of the other names that you're being linked to, who we can see they're not quite in Moussa Diaby's caliber. Moussa Diaby is a top 4 player. He's a French international, and I'm excited. I'm excited for Newcastle fans by him. I wouldn't necessarily rule him out completely, but I don't think they're going to spend at the minimum 55, probably 60 it would take to get him.
You made a really good point there, and obviously you brought Saint-Maximin into the conversation. I think it's really relevant because
especially with us 2 on.
Yeah, definitely. Is that obviously you're absolutely right. Allan Saint-Maximin divides opinion, and some people will say he's not going to make the grade or not quite at the level, and there's reasons to back that up 100%. You've alluded to some of them, Graeme, as well, and Martin has over the weeks. But the one thing I'll ask you is like you've said, with someone like Moussa Diaby potentially coming on the right-hand side, will that maybe take the pressure off him, because you've got then 2 players to occupy the defensive unit of your opposition, and then all the focus isn't on ASM? Because what you tend to find, and even in the preseason friendlies, what you tend to find is when Saint-Maximin's got the ball, you've got 3 men around him, and the teams still know now that if you get men around Allan Saint-Maximin and you stop him playing, you effectively stop a lot of the creativity in the team. We've got Bruno and 1 or 2 other players, but if you bring someone else on the other wing, it's equally or even better capable of producing that. Do you think that maybe that could open up Saint-Maximin to have more time and space on the ball?
Yeah, obviously to a degree. But, this is a guy who's demanded a new contract as well. This is the man who's demanding to be paid like a top 4 player. I don't think we've ever seen top 4 form out of him at any point at Newcastle. I think he was fortunate during that Steve Bruce era that he was there, because he was the gleaming light, wasn't he? He was in quite a negative team that was getting some results. He was often the outlet. I think he has to show himself at the moment. I think Newcastle have got no inclination to give him a contract at the minute by any stretch of the imagination. So I think it's up to him to show it. I think possibly, but even if you did bring that right-hand side player in, would it be then Joe Linton possibly on the left? It's an interesting one. I think at the moment, do we see a central midfield 2, which I think you need to with Bruno? You don't need 3 in there. So it'd be interesting. I still think that number 10 who plays that. I still think I said there's a 2 or 3. You made a great start to this rebuild. But I think Eddie Howe is still that 2 or 3 away. But I think that extra outlet, as you say, or your main attacking outlet, I think that's what he does want to upgrade. At the moment, when Bruno gets the ball, Saint-Maximin's there. Is he pleading for it? Is he stretching that fullback, or is he just trying to run inside and beat as many men as he can? For me, I've not seen a good team performance out of him. I watched Newcastle at least half at live at home, at least half a dozen times a year, and I can't remember. I'll have to look back at my ratings. I think I'm lucky if I've ever given him a 7.
Like my point on a Graeme has been, like, obviously he's, we seem to want to invest the time in him team wise, but I think this first half of this season is make or break for ASM. Because he's now 3 seasons in, going into seasons 4, and for me, it's little bits every now and again, and I like, my issue is the consistency. I don't for 1 minute don't think there's not a player there, and I think sometimes when I have a little pop about ASM, people think I don't like him, and it's not that. But what I'm looking for is even during the little bit of negativity with the back end before Bruce went, I'm looking at this and I'm going, hang on a minute, you're the star man. Listen, Alan Shearer was in some shitty teams, to be honest, with some shitty managers, performed every single game, barring the odd one. He turned up and he played for that shirt, as did some others, Gary Speed, David Batty, other players who were in amongst some crappy teams and players as well. So I think this season for me is do or die. And I think if by the January window, ASM hasn't performed every kind of single game throughout the season, okay, maybe one odd game, have an off game, but he's got to produce it this half season. If he doesn't, I think we should offload him, because I don't think he's a team player. And I know some people may disagree, but I actually don't think he's an Eddie Howe type of player either.
No, I totally agree, Martin. And when I speak about this Newcastle team from now on, I'm talking about a team who have the ambition to finish top 6, who should be finishing top 6. So that's where I'm coming out from. And is he a top 6 player? No, not in the slightest for me. I think that's why you see Newcastle not in for Danjuma at Villarreal, who Eddie Howe used to have. Very similar type of player. And I agree, Martin, I don't think he's an Eddie Howe type player in the slightest. I really don't. And so, yeah, long term, in 18 months, will he be at Newcastle? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Will he? And if he does leave, it won't be to a top 14. Maybe
exactly. I'd say you go back abroad, I would think.
Yeah.
But just an interesting one there from somebody in the chat there said that if Elliot Anderson gets a run on that right-hand side, Maxi won't get back in that team.
He won't, no. I'm still hoping that you might send him down on loan down the one or something. Send him down on
just
loan.
A short car ride.
Yeah, we'll have him for a little bit for one season maybe. But yeah, I think Anderson, he's obviously got a great chance of playing in there. It depends who plays on the left. Do you play Joe Linton, Anderson? I think we could see that at some point. Yeah. Although he's kept quite a few players. He's kept the long staffs of this world. I think it'd probably do Anderson the world of good to go. Depends which clubs want him. Obviously, if he goes top of Championship, but yeah, I like Anderson a lot. I do a podcast every Friday. Actually, it's the pre-match where we predict the lower league. So I saw a lot of Anderson actually in for Bristol Rovers, and he was spectacular. You can spot a player, whether it's Conference North or Premier League, you can spot a player, and he is a player. And I like him an awful lot, and I think Anderson, if he played number 10, he could play that role. I'd rather Anderson than Almiron at the moment. I think Anderson, I'd like him alone, but yeah, the more I say it, the more I think it'd be a greater use in that Newcastle first team at the minute, and I'd give him a chance. I really would. I think I'd rather him than most of the options available in that last third for Eddie Howe at the minute.
And the key is as well to it is that he doesn't even, I think, I'm not sure if you guys already said it, but he doesn't even need to be in the 25-man squad because he's still only 19 years old. So,
and the thing, I think, guys, which a lot of teams are realising next season, which is why we might not see as many loans as we think, these extra 2 substitutes that are allowed. So someone like Anderson, who may not have got as many minutes now, he'll get a lot more minutes because they can throw him on as a substitute at any point. And I think you'll see less Chelsea players going out. You'll see less Man City players going out, and people don't realise that these extra 2 subs, the more Premier League minutes these lads can get, is going to be invaluable. So I think Anderson will be one of those. Even if he's not breaking it first team, he will see Premier League minutes because of this new rule.
Yeah. I put the comment up there from Richie, who says, sad to hear such negativity from everyone. We should be behind our players given the new situation we're in. I think, Richie, first and foremost, nobody's being negative. What we're saying, mate, is we expect ASM to improve. We're not saying he's not a player, and we're not saying he doesn't deserve to be in the team, but what we're saying is he's got to show that consistency. Peter's always been
as a top 6 team now as well, Mike. We're talking like Newcastle, in my eyes, who should be aiming for top 6 next season. 6th place. I'm not saying top 3 or top 4, but I'm saying 6th place should be the target for this Newcastle team now. So you're looking at it from 12 months on, and this Howe regime, it's a very different place. So the players have to hit that higher standard.
And I think the other thing with that, Graeme, as well, to go back to Richie's point, is we've also had further additions into that team. And if you look at where we finished last season, our form was top 3.
2022,
and that's before the addition. So I think, Richie, nobody's being negative. I think everybody's being quite objective. But I think Pete's been a massive advocate for the whole season about ASM being on the right. And, I've said, yeah, that's great. Get him onto the right, but he needs to perform. He's got to be consistent. He's got to deliver. And he doesn't necessarily, and I think I made a point on one of the shows, Pete, way back, which I said, Keith Gillespie for me was a far better winger because he didn't have to go and beat 10 players to get a cross in or get to the goal line. He could take a defender, move him 2 yards and ping a ball around him. And put it on.
It's not even a conversation. He's not
exactly. He put it on the same hemisphere 3 times.
He's not in the same hemisphere.
Exactly. So I think Richie, we're not being negative, mate. We're just kind of saying it's make or break for.
And there's Everton teams where when you get better, you do have to upgrade.
Yeah.
And I know Joe Linton has been great, but if you are in 2 years' time, if you want to be top 4, will Joe Linton be in the team? Probably not. But he's done well. He's trying to get in there. He's trying to do himself well. Callum Wilson in 2 years' time won't be up there because you're gonna have to keep upgrading these places. And from this current team going forward in 2 years' time, if you are battling for top 4, who's going to still be involved? Trippier, Botman, Pope, maybe Target, Bruno, and that's probably it. We're talking about progression. That's what it's going to be, guys, isn't it? It's going to be progression.
You're absolutely right, Graeme. And like you alluded to, Nick Pope being a position that we needed. We unloaded have talked about Sven Botman. There was an argument at one point earlier on in the summer, that we didn't need another centre back because we had Dan Burn playing so well. We didn't need a left side centre back. But I think people have seen in his first couple of performances how much of a higher calibre of player, even at 22, that Sven Botman is. And you're absolutely right. We're not saying and those that know me know that I support ASM and believe that I think we should give him another year to try and get the best out of him. But like you and Mott have both said, we need to be moving with the times. And if we're looking at being a top 6, eventually top 4 team, we need to move with players that are on that level, that are moving in that direction. I think you're absolutely right, and there's nothing wrong about that. But the one thing I'll say is that anyone that knows us and knows Loaded, that once those boys put on the shirt and they step out onto the pitch, we support them 150%. But this is what we do. This is the Fully Loaded Transfer Show. We have discussions and opinions about players, and it's great that those in the chat, people like Graeme, come onto the show, and me and Mark are able to talk about it. So the one thing that's important is that Graeme said that we're still active in the market, and that was a question mark for a lot of fans. A lot of fans weren't sure whether that was the case, but we're still active. And there's one player that's got a little bit of interest from a Newcastle perspective, particularly in the last 48 hours, and it's this man, Jack Harrison. Obviously, you talked about Moussa Diaby, and that may be slightly cooling with the potential of it being revisited later on in the window. But Jack Harrison has certainly got a lot of interest. From your perspective, Graeme, you know, what can you tell us? What do you know from the interest of Newcastle with Jack Harrison at the moment?
Yeah, just touching quickly back on Diaby, one of the big issues with him is, and people might not realise, Bayer Leverkusen think they can challenge that title in the Bundesliga this year. They brought Adam Holozek in, they kept Patrick Schick, who was one of the boys in the Bundesliga. Bayer Leverkusen have got a wonderful squad, and they really could challenge for the top two over there. So that is part of their thinking as well. So if you do want him, you got to pay the real full whack. Jack Harrison, yeah, it's an interesting one. I think he would like this move. We know Newcastle like him a lot. They've inquired. I think there's a ceiling as to what Newcastle rate him as. I don't think the same as a £35 million player. It's what Leeds ideally would want. I like him. I think he's a very good Premier League player. He will give you 7, 8 out of 10 every week. He'll score you 5 to 8 goals every year. I think the only thing I'd say with Jack Harrison, and I cover Leeds a lot as well, so I do see him. And I think he would suit Newcastle. Don't get me wrong. I think he would suit them an awful lot. I think there's a ceiling to him. You know, I think which you don't have. Diaby's ceiling could be best player in Europe. It really is that high. Jack Harrison, he does have a ceiling there. And I think it's just one of these that they are looking at. They do like him a lot. I think his temperament and his persona does suit Eddie Howe a lot, because Eddie Howe, you know, he brings players in he wants to work with, and he does his background work on these players. And so, yeah, there is an interest there. I think Leeds are making sure that it's known. I think Harrison, from what we understand, would like to make the move. I'm being honest. You know, Leeds, they have Dan James, they bought Siniestra in. If they get another striker, it's possible, this one. It is. If Leeds get this, the striker Kilimandu from PSG, who Newcastle like as well, by the way. Keep an eye on him. Newcastle like him a lot. He's a very good player, but unfortunately, when you get these good players, he has impressed Christophe Galtier to an extent that he might be given a chance alongside. I'm not sure we're allowed to mention Hugo Ekitike, are we? But yeah, he's alongside him.
We can.
Yeah, I've got a lot of place in my heart for Hugo. I was fortunate to be the one to break that Newcastle story.
I was going to say you were the first person on social media to break the news that Hugo Ekitike, that deal was off. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah,
well, I broke the interest back in January, and I must admit, by the time it came to that deal being off, I feel like I could write his autobiography, to be honest, because I was writing the story every few weeks. Yeah, I got word early on that the agent was demanding bits of the fee, which doesn't usually happen. He was demanding all sorts. The player was happy to come. The player was getting a big deal, but the agent obviously had word that they could possibly get to PSG. I still think Newcastle is sound. Well, you guys want to make it sound silly. I still think it would have been a better deal for him to come to Newcastle, build on it. I don't think he's going to get much game time at PSG, to be honest. And he's cost himself a potential World Cup spot. If he came to Newcastle, started 10 games and scored 8, he'd probably go to the World Cup. Obviously, that isn't the case now. So I think it shows that Newcastle's researchers there, the scouting department, they trust the scouting department, which I think is a big thing. We're seeing that with some other clubs, like Man United, for instance. The manager's coming in and saying, "No, I want my players, not necessarily the scouting." So I think it shows good harmony in the club. Eddie trusts the scouts. He was right to trust them. And we'll obviously all watch Hugo Ekiteke's progress with interest, won't we? But yeah, there's a few.
Hope he's got a warm tracksuit.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few interesting ones from abroad who Newcastle still like. We've seen the boy Mara from Bordeaux, who's gone to Southampton today. My understanding is Newcastle were potentially looking at Bordeaux's situation. He might have been available for nothing. Bordeaux in danger of going into liquidation. So apparently Newcastle were quite a few clubs looking at that situation. I don't think he'd have come in and threatened Callum Wilson so much as Ekitike would have. If I understand, he's not quite that level. And so, it's an interesting one. Back to Harrison, though. Yeah, I think it's one to keep an eye on. He's very much one in that on the radar. And Newcastle have tested the water, seeing where it's at, and it's not over that one. But we'll have to see. It'd be interesting to see what Leeds do over the coming weeks, and that may help grease the wheels of Harrison getting out. But Matt, I think this window as well, guys, want to keep an eye on. it's very unusual, this window. It ends at the start of September, but we're already 5 or 6 Premier League games in. There's going to be a lot of players who become available here. Normally, we're about 2 weeks in, but this time we're more than twice that. So there's going to be players who thought they were part of the first team setup who will soon realise a month into the season they are no longer part of that. So there will be some players who become available now, not just in Newcastle, for all these clubs who are thinking, wow, I didn't think we could get this lad, but now he wants out and he's available. So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting window. A month from now, there's going to be some players who start the season thinking, right, I'm first choice here, and then a month in thinking, wow, I'm not getting a kick here, so I want out. So it's going to be really interesting.
And this is the lull that we talked about on Loaded. We've talked about for a few weeks now, and that we always knew that there was going to be a little bit of a downwards moment where there wasn't really much going on in terms of players being close, bids being accepted. We had that real rush of Pope, Target, Botman saga. Something happening every week. Ekitike, is it going to happen? Is it not? We've had this lull where there's not really much going on in terms of clear links, and fans, small section of the fans, because the vast majority know that the situation and what it is. There was going to be this moment, but you're absolutely right, and we talked about it. We had a show with Mitch and Stu last week where we talked about this and said, later on in the window, for the points that Graeme has just made, is that once the season kicks in and certain players realise they're not going to be playing every week, then go and say, could it be one or two that have got visions of making their World Cup squads for their respective countries and going, you know what, I need to play. And Newcastle go, well, we've got the money, we can do the deal, let's get it done, and we can be at the advantage to do that.
I think we'll see. I think, to take Graham's point, I think the Harrison deal is something that gets done last week of a window. In that, Leeds still need to make those moves, and then all of a sudden, okay, Leeds 135, Newcastle up for 25. There's a deal somewhere in the middle for 27, 28. With a couple of add-ons or whatever else. That's probably a deal from Leeds side that gets done.
Yeah, from a Newcastle, I've been from you guys in Newcastle point of view. Would you really want Jack Harrison? That's the only thing I come from. I think if you wanted to challenge top six, I think it steadies the ship. I think he's a good player. I say he's a good, not spectacular player.
He can strike a ball, though.
He's
a good striker of a ball.
He's a good player, but I don't know. I'd want from a Newcastle point of view, having looked at Moussa Diaby and been linked to someone, you want someone just with that higher ceiling. I think Jack Harrison is a very good player, and he would. I think Harrison would be more of an upgrade on Saint-Maximin in that you're going to get 7, 8 out of 10 of him most weeks. He's a very solid player, and him and Target on that left-hand side would be very useful indeed. But it depends, and it depends what we do with the striker front. Because from my point of view, guy, I think the thing that's holding up the right-hand side is the fact that Eddie Howe really, really wants Daniel Calvert-Lewin. I think that's the whole thing. That's why you're possibly not seeing all the money being spent on the right, because he really wants Daniel Calvert-Lewin. That's my belief. That's why, and I am hearing that from quite a few people.
So do you think that Dominic Calvert-Lewin could be sold from Everton then, considering that Richarlison has already gone? Do you think he's someone that could be that person that we get later on in the window, like you said?
Very much so. Everton need money. They've lost their massive sponsorship deal through Russian oligarch. Everton are in a bit of trouble financially. I think Newcastle, as I wrote in the piece today, are just playing the waiting game. They're being patient. I think they believe that at some point Everton will take 35, 40 million for him. And it's my belief that I think that's the one Newcastle are waiting for. And then they can go off and do the other winger deal, see what else is available. But I think having Wilson and Calvert-Lewin as your two, I think is a very impressive option to have. And I think, and obviously did the homework on him. We have to, as Newcastle fan, you have to trust that Eddie Howe has done his homework. It's clear that he does like him a lot. And I think that will put pressure on Callum Wilson. I think Calvert-Lewin, he's a very good player. He is. He's a mass. Look, you got to see him with Chris Wood and Callum Wilson, or Calvert-Lewin and Callum Wilson. It's a massive upgrade. It really is. Calvert-Lewin's capable of scoring 20 goals in the Premier League. He's already shown that.
Yeah.
I think Calvert-Lewin, I know some Newcastle fans aren't so sure, but It's got to be one of these in Eddie you trust. You know, look at what he did. Look at all the players he wanted in January. All of them worked out. Even I was skeptical about Dan Burn, I have to admit, but he's come in and done a great job. I like Calvert-Lewin. I think he's a very, very good player. Yeah, is he a top 4 player? Possibly not. But is he a top 6 player? Probably, yeah.
Interesting one in terms of that investment. I'll just go back to Jack Harrison 1 second, and I don't put this up very often, but look, I really like Jack Harrison. When people have asked me about it before, I've kind of said, yeah, I would take him, but this has been my question mark on him. So I don't know if you can see the screen, Sofa Score. So. It's the heat map just here that's always been my question mark about him. He can score goals, 10 goals last season, 12 goal contributions. I think there was 16 the previous season. So we know he gives a lot over a course of a season. Like you said, Graeme, you will regularly get those 7 to 8 performances every week. But because he's so predominantly left-hand side, and that is where Allan Saint-Maximin always plays, it's a case of what are we going to do? Are we either going to retrain Jack Harrison as a right-hand sided midfielder because he is left-footed? Is he going to become that inside forward for us and do what maybe Diaby was potentially going to do? Or do we keep him on the left and move Allan Saint-Maximin out on the right? I've always advocated for Saint-Maximin to play out on the right because I think his productivity is better out there for the games that he's played there. But I don't know. This has always been my question mark, is where is he going to fit into the team if we go and pay that money? I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think left. I like that heat map for my left-sided player. Look at the work he does at the back as well. I like that map. I imagine that Saint-Maximin's looks like a bowl of spaghetti, does it? Because he runs all over the pitch and does nothing. Yeah, and I'd say I think Harrison's an upgrade on Saint-Maximin and I think Eddie Howe would like this player because he will stick to that left-hand side and get crosses into the box. If you're playing a Callum Wilson, a Calvert-Lewin, or a Chris Wood, he doesn't want to see his winger Dickie dancing on the halfway line and flinging his arms about when he's lost the ball and getting in a huff because he's lost his hairband. He wants his up down the left-hand side putting the cross in.
Yeah, definitely. And his productivity is there. You know, his pass accuracies, his dribbles are relatively successful in there. He has got pretty tricky feet. If anyone's watched him play, he can bounce as well.
He can hit a ball as well. He really can.
Definitely. But he's got tricky feet. You watch him play, he can trick in dancing and out.
And that was that was quite a poor Leeds team towards the end of the season. Harrison stood up. He was. Yeah. If you were watching Rafinha and Harrison, that team, and Dan James, Rafinha didn't stand up head and shoulders above Jack Harrison so much. Harrison's a very good, and I can see why. I can see him as an Eddie Howe type player. Target and Harrison, as good as anything in that top 6. You know, look at it, better than anything Man United have got on that left side. Between the two, how we'd link up with Matt Target, I think we have to remember that. And do you know what? I imagine the one person who wouldn't want Allan Saint-Maximin playing in front of him is probably Kieran Trippier, because imagine how much busier his workload would be.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point for sure. But you know, other than that, for me, Jack Harrison would be a good investment. Like you said, he's not a top ceiling player, but at 25 years old, you've got someone that can develop and grow and maybe take his next step from Leeds to Newcastle.
He's more that old-fashioned as man. He's more that Keith Gillespie type as well, where he will try and beat his man. He will try and get an early cross in, which has some for something. If you are playing that big number 9, there's clearly Eddie Howe is going to play in the next 12 months that big number 9. So you need these early crosses. You can't just rely on Matt Target and keep your fullbacks all the time to do it. You do need these wide men to do that as well.
Definitely. Mark, was there something you wanted to add in?
There was just obviously we were chatting before, and we were talking about, you know, there's a bit of a lull at the moment. So Taylor makes a really good point, and I know this will generate a bit of conversation. But Taylor says, "Hey everyone, just a quick message from me. Stop complaining. Amanda and PIF clearly have a plan and a vision about how they want to go about it. As Merdad said, patience is a virtue. It will come." So pre-coming on air, me and Pete were having a little bit of a chin wag for about 5 minutes coming on air. And the two of us sat there and said, what is going on with Twitter at the minute? There's way too much negativity. People are freaking out. I've seen some good posts where people have gone, hey, do you remember October the 7th? And this was what we were talking about. We said, if we'd have been sat here at this stage back then and somebody said you'd have Nick Pope, Trippier, Dan Burn, Bruno, Botman, and we'd be going into this season on a high, we'd have probably all said, we were as drunk as we were the night of the takeover. But there is a lot of negativity. There's a lot of pessimism, in particular on Twitter, and a bit of what's happening. Why have we signed no players? Why have we not done this? We're the richest club in the world. So I think to answer Taylor's piece, I suppose we'll go to Graeme first. What's your view on kind of that whole bit of pessimism at the minute with where Newcastle are at?
Yeah, I would imagine it's because you've upgraded certain parts. I imagine it's a slight frustration that you're only 2 or 3 signs away from having a real chance here. From having a real chance of competing with Man United. Man United could be in free fall next year. And if they are going to drop out of the top 6, Newcastle need to be primed and prepped, ready to take that place. I think Leicester dropped off a little bit. But yeah, it's one of these situations where they're being careful. The PIF situation, the financial fair play situation in PIF. I do know the Premier League, and I totally I feel for Newcastle here, and I think it's disgraceful, really. We do know the Premier League are keeping a very close eye on Newcastle, which is just ridiculous, more so than any club in Premier League history. They didn't do it with City when they were overtaken. They didn't do it with Chelsea. They're probably not doing it with Chelsea now as we speak. And I think, PIF are just making sure that you don't cross any lines, or you're not even stepping on the lines. There's no argument here. There's no it's like in the Grand Prix, you're really not even touching the white line, let alone crossing it. You're making sure everything's good. The club is run well. But there is money there, and they're making sure they're not going to get ripped off on any deal, and they're making sure they're doing the homework. Everything needs to fit in. I would like to see them doing a little bit more, but you've still got a very big squad on big wages, and when you do sign these big players, they do come with big money in. So yeah, and I said we've got 6 weeks before the window shuts. There's still plenty of time. I know it seems that we haven't because the Premier League is starting early, which isn't helping these teams. But as we said, there's a lot to do in the window, and it really wouldn't surprise me if we see the striker, the new winger, and the central midfielder. In an ideal world, that's what they want. So it really wouldn't surprise me if they get that done.
Okay, there you go. Pete, what's your view on it? I know we were chatting beforehand.
Yeah, it's all become just a little bit sort of, like I say, it's becoming negative, and it's not from everybody. Like I said, there's so many that have come out with positivity and said, look, and reverted back to October, like you've said, reverted back to when we're fighting relegation, and as we've already alluded to, there's 6 weeks left in this window. They're not going to go and sign 8, 9, 10 players where you're going to get a new signing every other week that's going to keep you busy and interested. It's not going to be like that even in the future. As we build as a squad, we're going to get to a point over the next 4 or 5 years where we might only get 2 major transfers in one window. And we might have to wait for them or be very patient. You look at Man City. Man City had to wait for a year to get Haaland, but they know that now they've got Haaland, they've got one of the best strikers in the world. At some point in the years to come, we are going to be at that point where we're going to have to be patient and wait. And you're not going to get a signing instantly just because you've got money. In that we are playing a very intelligent, patient, and business-like game. And you have to, particularly at the point where every club in the world expects you to just go and splash money down on any player. They've got to play it a certain way. And so that means that we're going to have to be a little bit patient with deals. Graham's talked about later on in the window. He already alluded to Dominic Calvert-Lewin potentially. Eddie Howe really likes him. It could be an option later on, but it's just not viable to go and show your real keen interest right now and eventually have to splash 60 million on him, whereas later on in the window,
and it can be
a little bit later.
And it could be like, do you go and get Calvert-Lewin now for 50, or do you wait 4 weeks and get him for 40? There might be, it's little things like this as well, where it can save you an awful lot of money. And if a club is in trouble and certain things, and But I do think there are certain deals, as you said, the Carney deal from Villa. If that deal comes about, there's a lot of clubs interested. There will be certain deals that they can try and do. But yeah, it is a process, as a lot of the comments are saying, and you do need to be patient, and it's going to be. I do think the frustration does come from you do now realize you are that close.
Yeah.
You're looking at maybe if the season was to start tomorrow and finish, you're looking at about 8th place probably. But you're only them. I think it's the intriguing thing. You're only a couple of signings away from really, really pushing the West Hams of this world, even the Manchester Uniteds. And so, whilst frustrating, it's enormously exciting as well for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I think again, we've chatted on the shows, and we've said, I quoted some stuff where, the first 3 years, the first 2 seasons that Man City were taken over, they brought in players like
Benjani,
Wayne Bridge, Benjani. They brought in Gareth Barry. That second season, first into second season, Robinho was the only real marquee signing, for want of a better word. But they bought players that they didn't get ripped off on. They bought steady Premier League players. They brought in a bit of youth, and they gradually changed things. And I think Newcastle are following a very similar picture with that. And I think, you talk about the Chelsea piece, and financial fair play. And I put something on Twitter last night, and I said, it's good to see Chelsea are refinancing 100 million worth of debt and are spending 100 million on players, can give away 100 million player to Inter, and there's not a question asked. But Newcastle spend 40 million on Bruno, and it's kind of like, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here with PIF? So it's quite farcical. So look, it is kind of what it is. All right, we've got a few questions, and I'm kind of conscious of time, so I'll fly through them. So we'll try and rattle through. So Adam says, Forest have signed a lot of good players. Well, probably apart from Jesse Lingard. First game looking tougher, lads. Anybody think that's the case, or?
Massively. Forest, obviously, I saw a lot of Forest last year as a Middlesbrough fan. I saw them come up. My understanding is Forest could have 15 players signed within the next 6 weeks. They've already got 11, so there's some way on the way of doing it. They've improved every aspect of that team so far. They want another striker. Maybe Emmanuel Dennis from Watford, one to look out for. Again, another player linked to Newcastle at times. Gibbs White they love as well. Actually, Gibbs White is an interesting one. He's a player that I'm amazed that Newcastle aren't in for. Morgan Gibbs White is a huge talent available for a certain amount. I really can't, and there might be, I haven't heard it at the moment. It's Forest and Everton at one point, and also Crystal Palace. And in fact, I'd say that I'm surprised. I'd be surprised if Newcastle weren't in for Gibbs White. I'll be honest. But anyway, we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, that first game, they've improved. Nico Williams, the right back, is wonderful. We've seen that actually Richards, the left back, has actually got a broken leg, so he probably won't be fit for that game. But they've signed Harry Toffolo. Lewis O'Brien is an interesting one, actually. He's a very good player. He was probably the best midfielder in Championship last season, so he is one to watch. But I think Newcastle will benefit if you are going to play Forest. I think playing them the first week is probably a good fit. Yeah. 6 weeks into the season, I wouldn't want to play them. Steve Cooper's a very good manager, but I think that first game at St. James's, I think that's a perfect game for Newcastle, to be honest.
Okay, there you go.
I was worried the other way around. I've got to be honest. We what we're talking about this. I thought the worst time to play a new team is when they're fresh and got so much energy about on first game of the season.
I think with Cooper, he's such a clever manager. Once he gets that message over to these new players, they'll really.
I think it's a good time to play them because that is a lot of players to gel.
Yeah,
it's not like bringing in 2 or 3, but
especially this man.
Yeah,
God, he's got a lot of negativity over the back of this move. Not because he's gone to Forest, or maybe because he's gone to Forest, but it's more about the finances around it. Between 180 and 200,000 £200,000 a week, only a 1-year contract, so could potentially walk away.
That's why that's a 1-year contract. I think the basic I've been told is just over 100, etc. It's more than he was offered at West Ham, and there's a reason Forest can do it because it's a 1-year deal. That's why they are able, and including bonuses, etc. It could get up to that amount.
Right,
but it's over a 1-year deal, which is why it's a 1-year deal. It's not a 5-year deal paying him 200 grand a week. It's a 1-year deal with bonuses on top. So a 1-year deal isn't much. They're probably playing similar for Dean Henderson, paying half his wages and a big loan fee. So that's why Forest are able to pay him good wages. And let's not. He's not an 80 grand a week. He's not. That's less than what West Ham offered him. So yeah, he's gone there. He's gone there to play and impress. but yeah, the checks he's going to get plays a big part.
Okay.
Just before we move on to the next question,
Yep.
There's 340 live watching in the chat. Great to have you all with us. As we always say, that thumbs up makes a massive difference to the channel. Just takes
Smash
a second
that
to
like.
press and smash that like. And whilst you're there, click the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Come and join the Loaded family. Well on the way to 5K in just over a year, which is an amazing achievement for any channel, especially just 5 dads that love talking about Newcastle as we are. And we've got fantastic guests like Graeme on. So just make sure you click that subscribe, hit that like up now, get us up to 340 because there's 340 in the chat. That would be fantastic. Right, more any other questions? I know there's more.
Yeah,
questions.
I've got a few. I've got about 20 here, so I'll try and rattle through. There's a couple of comments on a couple. So, Alan Virginius, any winger from France, anything in this?
It's not one of my radar, but you know, Newcastle got a tremendous scouting network down there. I know the name, but it wasn't for Newcastle, I must admit. So
Okay.
I think, you know, I think if it is a youngster, it will be like an Ekitike or Diaby. It needs to be a youngster who can come in and make an immediate impact.
Okay.
They may sign someone's spot. No, I don't think. I think if someone's going to come in, it'd be like a Harrison or someone who can do that as well.
What about this kid then?
Sesko.
Yeah. Little bit of stuff from his agent, little bit of playing on Instagram and everything else.
Yeah, mischief. I did a report on this actually today. He's a very good player, but he is the heir apparent to Karim Adeyemi, who moved to Borussia Dortmund to take the place of Haaland. He's not going anywhere. He's got the Champions League to look forward to. He's one of Salzburg's latest products. Salzburg, who have a wonderful stream of strikers, you know, Patson Daka, Erling Haaland, Karim Adeyemi. So if you know you're coming off that conveyor belt, you are a very good player. And he actually said a month ago, it was in the story, that he's definitely not leaving the season because Milan and Spurs inquired. A little bit of mischief, I think, on the agent's behalf. And I think he is on Newcastle's list. There's no denying that. But yeah, he won't be leaving Salzburg, because if he was to leave, it would take an enormous bid to get him. And obviously Newcastle have obviously got a limited budget to a certain extent. I think if they were to do it, it would be someone a bit more.
Okay.
Not capable is the wrong word, but you know, he's only started. He hasn't even played virtually a full season for Salzburg yet. So I think it's a bit early for him as well.
Would have been more high profile would be looking for, maybe.
Yeah, if you're going to spend, because it'd take at least 40 million to get him out. So yeah, it would be high profile with more of a track record to get someone to go for the number 9 shirt.
Okay, we've got a couple of shout outs as well, just to do as well. So Dougie Morris, fair play, became a new member. So thanks for that. I do want to give a shout out, firstly to Adam and also to Shane. Those folks that do join us from the likes of Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all these other crowds, in particular Australia, New Zealand. Shane, who's normally with us, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, getting up to watch this before work and stuff. It's massively, massively appreciated. So I just did want to give them a shout out. Paul Oxley, just wanted to raise this. I'm sure we'll have a quick view on it, but obviously Dwight Gayle recently signed a 3-year contract, now leaving on a free, going off to Stoke. Obviously a parting gift from Mike Ashley with a 3-year deal and then sending him on a free. But yeah, look, from my perspective, Dwight Gale's been a really good servant to the club, 6 years, scored some crucial goals, particularly, as Paul says there, got us out of the championship with his goals. And from my perspective, will forever be looked back on for his the Mags are going up, Sunderland's going down dance. Yeah. So, yeah, we wish him all the very best at Stoke, and I'm sure he'll score goals down there with a 2-year deal.
Great. Why didn't Borough go for him?
Why didn't Borough go for Dwight Gayle?
Yeah, we did go for him. Win for quite a few. There's a reason our squad numbers just been announced. There's a reason we don't have a 9, 10, or 11 at the minute, and we're waiting for these loan players to come available. The former Newcastle striker Adam Armstrong is very high on our wish list. We actually want 5 strikers, so we're at least 3 short at the moment. So we got a bit of building to do before the start of the season, which is next week for us. But we've made some very good signs. But yeah, Dwight Gayle we did go for, but yeah, he was just on a bit too much money for us. So Stoke have paid him that.
He was on a bit too much money for us. That's why he's gone. Question then from Chris Hall, obviously part of the loaded team. He was on a train, apparently couldn't come home for a week. So as Mrs. said, because the track was bent in the heat. So he's been dossing somewhere down the country. He said, do you think the owners will exercise the same patience as we did with Botman in the pursuit for Diaby? or do you think we'll maybe go back in January for him, or next summer if we don't get him now?
I don't think it'll be January because I think Bayer will be deep into European football and challenging possibly for the Bundesliga title. I think if you want Diaby, you've got to get him this summer. I think it'll be a huge ask. He's likely going to go to the World Cup with France. If he goes there and performs, that's not saying Newcastle couldn't get him, but you are then looking at top 4 clubs, etc. I think this is the window to get someone like him. And I think the owners should strike now. That's not to say, you might finish, hey, who knows, you finish 4th Champions League, he comes in. But I think sometimes you have to make that little bit of a push. And, I sound a bit biased for Diaby, but I love him as a player. He's absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, I do wonder if this is your only chance to get him, really.
Okay. I'm just going to steal in ahead of Martin here.
Yeah, go on, man.
You've mentioned about Diaby. It's either kind of now or never. Do you think it's the same with this man, Lucas Paquetá? Obviously, talked about a lot within Newcastle fan base. Bruno's friend talked about the picture of him in Newcastle wearing the top, all the rest of it. Is it a case of now or never for Lucas Paquetá as well?
I don't think so, because it's a different type of player. He's a centre midfielder. I wouldn't read too much into these having his fee slashed in half. We know the Leon Ulas is one of the toughest negotiators in Europe. He's an interesting one. I quite like Paquetá. Could he have the same impact as England's Bruno? I'm not 100% sure. Do you not spend huge on the striker in right midfield? I think Paquetá could be that number 10 option, maybe, as we spoke about. Obviously, Newcastle have looked at him, like him. He's certainly a bit on the expensive side at the moment, but did they look at him late at the window? Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah. As Leslie says, there's Paquetá a possibility for later in the window. Somebody also said, was there any chance we might offer ASM in part exchange for Paquetá and offer him back up to Lyon?
These sometimes not beyond the realms of fantasy. I think I've probably been a bit down on ASM, but I only say it because, as I said at the start of the show, I'm saying it from Newcastle's a top 6 proposition now. I'm not saying you as even mid-table. I'm saying you as pushing for the top 6.
Yeah.
So any players coming in or players staying have to be able to take part in that journey for Newcastle to get there. And if you're not, there's no point in having you there.
Yeah. Okay.
Great point.
Just to answer this one for Ray, I know there is a little bit of talk going on. Is there any chance a load of gang and chatters could have a pre-season meetup? Well, there are a few guys going to pre-season. Daz will be at the Forest game. I'm hoping to get over sometime beforehand, certainly pre-Christmas. But I'm not sure whether we are meant to say or not to say. But the loaded gang, so myself, Pete, Chris, Richie, and Daz, we have bought ourselves some hospitality seats for the Southampton game in April. Hopefully it doesn't get changed, because otherwise me and Daz are going to get stuck. But the entire loaded team are over in Newcastle in April, early next year, for the Southampton game. So I'm sure as we get closer, we will try and do something. There is a bit of talk. Richie is trying to do a little bit of work, and perhaps we might try and do a loaded live somewhere if we could get a venue or do different things. So there's a lot of talking going on. But the one thing that is for definite is we will be over in Newcastle next April. The loaded boys are coming to Newcastle, and we're going to go to the game. We're going to have a few beers. So anybody that's in the chat that's around as we get closer, you can meet us outside and inside. And I'm sure it'll be a great day. So yes, we are coming home, as they say.
Definitely. And Lisa's put in the chat, Loaded Fest is a go. It is
Loaded
a go.
Fest is a go, yes.
There'll be more information on that. Look, I have to say I've been getting messages from people that are Newcastle fans in the chat and various others in DMs saying just how much of a fantastic guest you've been tonight, Graeme. They really appreciate you taking the time and your knowledge on Newcastle. Have you got another, say, 10 minutes just to answer some questions, or do you need to?
Of course, of course, not a problem. Okay. My missus is recording Love Island, so we can come to it when we can.
That's what Daz is doing.
Good stuff.
Yeah. The other thing, just before we do kick in, there's loads of comments and stuff in the chat. I'm trying to get through them as much as I can. Yeah. Obviously, there's not as many of us here tonight, so we're trying to get through as much as we can. We haven't even mentioned sponsors yet, which we'll kind of do before the end. Yeah. So if I don't get to your comment and I don't get the question out, I do apologize, but we are trying to rattle through in the time that we've got Graeme with us. So, yeah. All right, Pete, go on.
Yeah, look, I've got a couple of questions just around certain players, really. There's been a lot of interest, obviously, in Jack Harrison. We've talked about him earlier on in the show. But then on the back of that, there's been some new links today. And there's a few Arsenal fans that have been messaging me before the show saying, are you going to mention this man, Nicolas Pépé? Now, there's been a lot of links that there's a potential deal to be had, and I know that you alluded to that in your piece that you wrote today on an update on all things Newcastle. But obviously, the Arsenal Times have said just in Newcastle have Nicolas Pépé on a target list and find the Ivorian right winger attainable this summer. Some have also mentioned that it could be a possible loan or a small fee. What do you know about this, Graeme?
Yeah, well, I can actually read them out. I've got a message from a source close to the Pépé camp, and I can read it almost verbatim. I'm going to double check. He is looking for a fresh challenge. His availability would appeal to Newcastle. He isn't looking for the same terms. He just wants the right platform, and obviously Arsenal are looking to move him on. He could be an intriguing sign, this boy. Let's not forget, before he went to Arsenal, he was a massive player in France, and they paid £72 million for this guy, and. You know, and what I like about him, I think it'll appeal to Eddie Howe. He's clearly not a troublemaker. You know, we haven't heard much of this kick up his thing. Yeah, in January he was linked with a loan move. Why wouldn't he? He wasn't getting his game. I think he ticks a lot of boxes, this guy. And I'd say if he's available on loan and he's the option, you know, if he's available on loan, then you can plough all the money into the striker front and maybe a centre midfielder. Yeah, I keep an eye on this one, guys. He ticks an awful lot of boxes. Yes, of course, he's a risk. It didn't work out for him at Arsenal for whatever circumstance. You know, a lot of players hasn't worked at Arsenal. William Saliba, the best young player in France last year, hasn't kicked a ball for Arsenal since he signed 2 years ago. So it doesn't always work out for these players, you know. This is William Saliba linked to Barcelona today as well. So that sort of example, you know, guys. Yeah, Nicolas Pépé, really interesting one. It is a possibility, this one. He does tick a lot of boxes. He's available. And as you say, even a bit maybe on loan at some point. But yeah, there is a little bit in this.
Interesting one. We talked about Pépé early on in the window. Didn't anything come from it. Now, obviously, Graham's confirmed that there is interest in there, and he is potentially looking at a new challenge. Obviously, from your source, Martin, what do you think about that? What do you think about the potential of someone like Nicolas Pépé coming to Newcastle, being that right winger as an alternative to Diaby?
I think, do you know what it is? I think, like Graeme, I think he'd do a decent job for us. I think if is it a loan option? Probably, I'd say would be the best thing to take him for the season. We'd certainly give him the platform. I think he's stalled at Arsenal, and I think sometimes the player just stagnates, and it just doesn't matter what they try and do to turn it around. They're just wrong player at the wrong team, and I think that's what's happened with him, if I'm honest. So sometimes, you know, it's like a new spruce of paint on a bedroom. Sometimes you give it a little bit of love.
Look at Coutinho. In his career, he's stalled at various points. He went from Brazil to Inter as a brilliant teenager. Nothing worked. Went to Liverpool, became the best player in the Premier League. Went to Barcelona, stalled again. And then he's come to Villa. And I know he was best player in the park when Villa, for me, at Villa at St. James's, he's turned it on again. So yeah, some of these players, it's well worth looking at. You know, look at Frankie de Jong, probably the biggest transfer window when he goes to United. He stalled at Barcelona a bit. Yes, as Mike said, sometimes it is just the right player at the wrong club.
Okay, definitely. And look, you know, he was producing some great football before he came to Arsenal. He came to Arsenal in a difficult moment, as what's already been
72 million pound they paid for him.
Yeah. That price tag, we know what a price tag can do to a player. Just look at Joe Linton. When he came in with that price tag, the number 9 on his back, it can affect a player. You change that and you bring him in where he's not got that additional pressure. You look at what Joe Linton's done now. Now Bruno Guimaraes has effectively got that transfer, and that Wilson's got the number 9. He's now producing the football that we wanted initially. Can Pépé come with a fresh mindset, with fresh eyes, with Eddie Howe as his manager, produce the best football? let's see, and he's still got years ahead of him. But yeah, a little bit of an interesting update with regards to that. One other player, sorry, Mark, just to
go on, mate.
jump in. One other player that's been talked about quite a bit in the last week or so, and there's rumours that there's a bid being made and rejected within this time, and that's Ivan Toney. It's clear that we've been looking for a striker to come in and either rival Wilson or be as a backup. Obviously, we know Ivan Toney well. He played at Newcastle United previously, and there's been talk that we've been considering that bid. And there's been talk, obviously, from Mark Douglas. It said they want at least 40 million for him. Is anything that you know about that, Graeme, with regards to an update on Ivan Toney? Is it a deal that could be done?
In short, no. I know Brentford well, got good contacts there. Brentford have no interest in selling Ivan Toney. And if you did, you'd have to be north of 50 million. Now, a lot of people scoff at that. Let's look back to the summer of 2020 when they had Ollie Watkins at Brentford. Not a single minute of Premier League football. But sold him for what? £35 million they sold him for. Ivan Toney has a season's worth of Premier League football underneath his belt. So if you think you're going to get Ivan Toney for a fee anywhere near what they got for Ollie Watkins, after just Championship football, you're massively mistaken. Brentford don't need to sell, and they won't sell. So yeah, this isn't happening. It won't happen this summer.
Yeah, there you go.
Interesting.
And then because the price has been set, guys. They've set that price. It's what you would expect. So there's no reason for Brentford to sell. He's in London. There was talk of a new contract. I don't think it'll happen this summer, but potentially, Toney could. He's one of those who's probably on the fringes of England. If he first 6 games he scores 10 goals, he could go to the World Cup. Everyone, there's still a space available now. I think on that playing for the Harry Kane understudy. We saw that Gareth possibly isn't the biggest fan of Tammy Abraham. He didn't play him in Nations League, hardly had a kick. So we do know, and so it's for Calvert-Lewin as well. That's why I think Calvert-Lewin, coming back to him, will probably push for a Newcastle move. If he ain't got Newcastle and score goals, he's probably going to go to the World Cup.
Yeah. No, great point. Last one from me. Obviously, you touched about a few players in your latest article. If anyone's not seen Graeme's latest article from today, go and read it. You'll see it there. Obviously, go to his Twitter handle and you'll be able to find it. There was 3 players that you talked about within that I thought were really interesting. So I'll put them all together in one. What is the interest in, firstly, Dwight McNeil, and then Maxwell Cornet, and then interestingly, more than anything, Memphis Depay. What are the sort of how deep is Newcastle's interest with those 3 players?
Yeah, they are very different. Memphis Depay, he's been offered around Europe. Newcastle are one of the clubs. You'd expect that to be 28. An interesting option, I wouldn't necessarily rule that out. He's a top quality performer. Could he be available on loan? Probably not, given Barcelona's financials. But if you can get him for 2025, I think he's probably one who is on the long list, as I would put it. I don't think he'd be at the top of the agenda for them. Is he an Eddie Howe type player? I think that would be a concern, with Memphis Depay. So it's not impossible, but I'd say he was on the long list. Dwight, McNeil and Cornet are both very interesting prospects. Both McNeil you could probably get for less than 20. I like him. He likes to run with the ball. He's English. I think that Eddie Howe would like him. He ticks all the boxes. But like Jack Harrison, for me, I think McNeil. It's a tough one. He's a bigger risk than Jack Harrison, but as I referred to before, guys, I think someone like McNeil would have a bigger ceiling in that he could possibly become better than Jack Harrison. Whereas Jack Harrison currently probably is a better player. And you know what you're going to get out of him. McNeil and Eddie Howe could become a very, very good player. I liked a lot of him. I think he's a confidence player, and I think he's worth a look. And the other one, Maxwell Cornet, is fascinating. He's got a release clause of less than £20 million. Look at his. I tell you what, if you want to see a winger who scores and assists, look at Maxwell Cornet from last season in a worse team than Newcastle. That Burnley team. Don't forget how poor that Burnley team was. They were awful. But Maxwell Cornet, what a little world! Whoever gets Maxwell Cornet now, what a signing that is for less than 20 million.
Is it 17 million release club?
Yeah,
Is that right?
17.5. And you know, obviously he had a few issues in France, which is why obviously Burnley got him in the. Let's not forget he was at Burnley for a reason. Yeah, that's the thing. Let's not forget he had a few issues at Lyon before, but you know, let's not forget Bruno knows him from their time together.
Very true.
I think Cornet is one where. Yeah, and to be honest, I'm told that Conte has a lot of offers. He's got a lot of interest, not unsurprisingly, from the continent as well. I think he's just weighing up his options. I think Newcastle are one of those ones who are sniffing. Why wouldn't they? It's one of those, it's a bit like the Carney deal from Villa. You know, the deal's that good. Why wouldn't you be in the mix? And I think that's one of those. But yeah, I think McNeil and Cornet, they're both on the list. Very interesting options. And this is why Newcastle was all taking the time. They're making sure they do the homework on these players. They're making sure they're looking around what options are out there, and there's nobody going to suddenly jump up out of them that they don't know about. So yeah, it's a fascinating one, that. And yeah, and does that then the prospect he'd sign Cornet and Harrison instead of a striker? Yeah, listen, he may instead sign 2 wingers instead of a striker. I think number 9 is his main one, but they may look at different options that become available.
Interesting. Really, really interesting. Well, look, we'll leave it there for tonight. Graeme, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Honestly, some of the comments and the DMs and messages that I'm getting off the back of you coming and joining us have said it's been a really, really informative.
I haven't seen too many anti-Middlesbrough comments, so always good.
No, they're a decent bunch, to be fair.
Yeah, the one thing we'll always say is our Lodi family in the chat, they're always very, very respectful, really appreciative of anybody, any person that takes the time to come and join us on our shows, and definitely tonight for yourself. So really, really appreciate your time, Graeme. Hopefully, maybe later on in the window, you can join us again for a little bit of an update.
Yeah, of course, not a problem, guys. Anytime you want me, let me know.
Definitely. So at that point, we'll just do a quick run through of the sponsors just to round up the show. So, Mark, if I just whack the pictures up,
you do it. I'll rattle on. Go for it.
Good stuff. So, Machine House.
Yep, Machine House, obviously one of our top sponsors. Get online. You can subscribe to their mailing list. Huge range of t-shirts, hoodies, loads of different other stuff. Martin and the guys at Machine House, Newcastle-based company, some real top clobber they've got on there, as Pete's putting up there. So get yourself online, get yourself a couple of bits of gear. And I think Martin and the guys are also working on, hopefully over the next while, they're going to do a loaded code for us where you get a little bit of discount online as well. So, yep. Shout out to Machine House.
Guys, I will wear one of those. If you send it to me next show, I will wear one if you want me to.
I'll tell you what, let's get on to Mark.
There you go, Marty. The challenge is there. Graeme Bailey will wear a t-shirt if you want to hook him up, pal. There you go.
No, not a problem.
I'm sure he will. He's a decent lad for a Celtic supporter.
Definitely. I'm just looking on here. I haven't got any of the other sponsors. I think Daz has got rid of them.
Do you want me just to shout out?
Yeah,
I've got
got
one. So we will obviously give a shout out to Shy Bairns. I know Simon was in the chat. So as you can see, he not only does his own gear, but the loaded Mag NUFC t-shirts are online. You can have a myriad of colors. And he splits that with some towards the Newcastle Foundation and some towards the channel, which goes to help us run in StreamYard and other bits and pieces. So get on to Shy Bairns. I know he's been doing really well. He's got loads of different bits, caps, t-shirts, but in particular the loaded range, including cups, bottles, loads of different bits and pieces. So go on there. It's helping me and Pete pay for our holidays. It's not. So that's those guys. Also need to give a shout out to Pins and Prints. Again, you can get onto Pins and Prints. We haven't got the bid on there, but Pins and Prints. And then last but not least, I'm sure I'm probably going to miss someone. If you want to listen back to this, loads of people kept going on, and I was going on a Daz about getting us up onto Spotify. We're now on Spotify, but we can also tell you we are now also up on iTunes. So you can listen back to this breaking news. Daz has been working hard in his off days. You can get us on Spotify, or you can get us on iTunes, on Apple, and you can listen back to the shows that we do and the back catalogue. So, yeah, get yourself onto them, get yourself out for a walk with the dog or whatever you do, and a bit of downtime and listen to us back if you don't get to watch it. So there you go.
Definitely. And just one last plug, get those thumbs up, those likes in on your way out tonight. Well over 360, 370 watching at points in the show. And we're on the way to 5K, well on the way to 5K. So click that subscribe on your way out. Absolutely fantastic. And there we are, guys. Another fully loaded transfer show in the bank. Watch that back. Lots of great chat, lots of great knowledge from Graeme. And like I said, he'll be back later on in the transfer window. But
it'd be good to get Graeme on towards the back end. And maybe one of the things we've talked about for a few times about the show is kind of like doing a Sunday supplement type show with a few kind of writers and journals and stuff on. So we got a few that have come onto the show. It'd be good to see, can we try and line up something like that towards the back end? Obviously, the likes of, I know, Pete Graves and people, and obviously Graeme and Lee and some of the guys are busy towards the last couple of days. But we'll see, can we get a few lined up? Or I'm sure we'll get Graeme back. A lot of love from the people in the chat for you, Graeme. So thanks very much again, mate.
I appreciate that, guys.
Fair play for coming on. Yeah, absolutely.
And for all the chatters, a pleasure as always.
Yeah.
I'm now on holiday for the next week, so I'm going to be enjoying the sun.
Chris is in charge.
Yeah, so I'll still be watching very, very closely all the loaded shows that will be available next week. But until then, guys, you take care, and we will speak to you very, very soon. Have a good
Be safe,
evening.
guys. Have a good evening. Graeme, thanks again.